If you have ever been to a supermarket and even Marks and Spencer's, you have been to Goods, you have been to, I think they also give to Sainsbury's, I'm not sure. But has any of you ever noticed the Governor's cheese in any of the supermarkets? No. Well, let me tell you about this company. This company has been working for the last 4 generations with how do they convey a better way of providing you with the most delicious cheese you can make. Why is that interesting? Because one of the key things they really want to do is to really make us think that cheese is not just a product of milk. It comes out of a long tradition, a long heritage, authenticity, and the proper use of different resources, especially the knowledge of the new generations. How do they do that? Well, who are they? If you look into Moodle, you're going to find that the challenge for this workshop of this week gives you a website about the company. At the same time, it gives you information about who they are, how long they have been trading, the products that they have. So I encourage you to go into Google, look for them, Butler's Farm of Jesus, and just have an idea of the company that we're dealing with. And who are they? Well, very interestingly, we're going to see a video about them. And let's see if this might work. And then we can discuss a little bit more.
One of the facts that always amazes me is that more households buy cheese than loo rolls. I'm very proud to say we are a family business, and we've been a family business now for 15 years.
1st of October 1969 we made cheese for the first time. Little children to look after as well. Took the pram in the dairy and we just put sultanas around the cheese. So when we emptied the milk out, she would crawl around in the vat and help us up to the sultanas.
When we started, we made farmhouse traditional Lancashire cheese. We've also now started making other varieties. In fact, we make 14 varieties in total.
Tasty Lancashire based like proper good cheese, it's really good. It's got a very distinctive tang. It's probably the best cooking cheese you're going to find because the soil around here is more acidic, so the milk ends up being more acidic. So that's what makes it a really good melting cheese.
We're in the middle of the 2 wettest cities in the country, Lancaster and Preston. Lots of rain makes very good grass, which makes very rich milk, and that gives the cheese a real depth of flavour.
All the time we're trying to find new experiences for cheese for our customers. So it could be working on different recipes, or at the moment I'm just practicing making goat's cheese balls. It could be canapes or lollipops and picnics. We get to play with food. Who doesn't want to play with food?
We'll make all our cheese in 20 kilogram rounds or block shape, and then we can cut it down into whatever size anybody wants, from as small as 7 grams to 20 kilograms. The overriding thing is that we look after the quality of our cheese, and we try to remember my dad's words every single day. It's your quality that's got you where you are today, and it's your quality that will keep you there.
So if you go into your Moodle page and download the workshop instructions for this week, what are the challenges that this family is asking you to take a look at? I never thought they would have any rows like this. Interesting. Okay. So what are the challenges that this family is asking you to help them with? What are those?
Like
have 3 challenges in there that your team has to be taking a closer look at. And of course, you have to decide which one do you think they should go forward. Which ones are there? There are 3 challenges in there. The first one deals with diversification, right? What about the second one? Specialization, concentration on what you do best. And the third one, and final one, what is the third request? Differentiation. Now, we have talked about differentiation before, right, with coffee. We have just touched briefly about diversification, but we have really not taken a closer look at how do you specialize. The background of this company, again, as we mentioned in the first lecture, we have to understand the DNA, we have to understand the history. The history goes back to this age. We mentioned there will be more than 50 years being making cheese, but they have been established as farmers since 1932. Quite a history, close almost to 100 years. And if you take a closer look at that slide, what you're going to find is that I'm very proud of being a family business. 4 generations. Businesses worldwide, most of them will be family-owned and controlled. Some of them are the 3rd, 4th, 5th generation. Some of them are already at the 15th generation and even more. Now, one of the key characteristics of these businesses is that we're very, very proud of the knowledge that has been passed down for generations. If you take a look at what they have been doing, right, based in rural Lancashire, how are they actually highlighting the relationship with the partnerships? Actually, these may be very old firms as well. But at the same time, they're suggesting, look, we're starting to diversify from what we actually have. We started with cow, we started with sheep, so on and so on. Very interesting is that now they are controlling the whole process, from the production to packaging to distribution, etc. Now, it's a very interesting business, right? More interesting because a young person, just like you, is currently a member of the board. Now, they are actually now thinking ahead, figuring out what is the next option they need to do. Whether they establish stores on their own, whether they have to specialize in particular customers or suppliers, or whether they really should differentiate the products. Those are decisions that a corporate entrepreneurial mindset deals with. And the importance of doing something like that is that they have to go back to, as you have been talking in the last few days, so they have to go back to what makes them unique, what makes them special. If you remember what I mentioned about authenticity, it's all about what makes that product sought after by consumers. If you make a certain decision, like going for, specialization, how is that going to affect, perhaps, how you are portraying the cheese or the product? If you're going for diversification, what is going to be diluted? Or are you going to do it because you want to preserve or steward a family tradition in cheese making? If, again, you take a look at this. August Council Cheese is a true family business based in the heart of rural Lancashire. We really do know cheese making like the back of our hands. 4 generations of doing this. Still, they want to put forward and consider 3 options, which you are going to help them decide. So that's the purpose of the challenge. That's the ownership structure currently. The lady you saw in the videos, Jill Hall, she is an entrepreneur in residence at Lancaster University, and she is a 3rd generation owner. Matthew, who is going to come today, and also being a Lancaster graduate, is a 4th generation. And between the 2 of them, these 2 generations, they have been pushing this business further. How does that happen? Well, yesterday we mentioned something about family entrepreneurial teams. One of the key things that families consider when they have to expand or diversify the portfolio is which family members are involved. Those teams of family members, just like Jill and Matthew, they rely on something very unique. I still remember when Matthew was one of those students. They know not only cheese making, but they do know how the family works. And if you saw that video, you saw a little baby crawling eating the cheese, right? So he's been involved very early on into what cheese is all about and what it means to their family. That's when you realize the difference between a family business and a non-family firm. You see a very strong connection between the people that are leading the firm from different generations and how well they know the product. But most importantly, is the aspect of knowledge, which we touched upon yesterday. Knowledge in the family business is treasure. It's a long-term deployment that is ensured by interactions. Just like in the first lecture we talked about brainstorming events and all these different things, they do it every day. In the breakfast, during work, while handling customers, and even when they're doing for dinner. It's non-stop. And that's what makes them unique. But at the same time, that context poses some constraints. So now, they have, of course, if you take a look at these elements in here, you see just how the firm is structured in terms of ownership. And that also suggests that we need to expect that these family businesses are not the traditional that you expect just mom and dad leading the firm. Actually, it's far more complex than that. We really capitalize how the family is structured, but how do we bring corporate elements into it? Now, this is a firm that is going further because they realize how important it is to bring this kind of mindset. If you take a look at this graph, you're going to see, as Matthew is going to come in today, and you're going to see as well members of the family. And at the same time, you see people that are non-family members. When you're making really difficult decisions, when you're making corporate decisions in a family business, one of the greatest struggles is that if we only allow family members to say what can happen, or to have an opinion of what can happen. It is great because they have a great experience, but these families are looking for entrepreneurially, are bringing as well experts and suggest that we perhaps are going to do something like this. How should we do it? Jackie Jackson, she was a student of mine as well, doing a PhD. Oliver was a student as well in Lancaster. And all the people you see here that are non-family members, again, they bring something unique. They bring something, again, that is based on how we do things in this particular area, and at the same time, bring a non-family element. That's really interesting because you see a board, extremely complex, very rich board to make decisions. Why do we need to take a closer look at how they view themselves further down the line? Because that highlights the vision, but very importantly, the values that underpin what they're thinking of doing. Those three options you have in your workshop challenge might be very well related to this. So the most common thing that we always start with is vision, right? And what is vision? We're looking ahead for the purpose of this company in the future, what the company really aspires to be. Look at this vision. High performing team, an outstanding place to work. If we apply what we saw yesterday about international team boards, you can begin to see how perhaps ideas further to diversify international around. If you take a look at the mission, our mission is something what we do. Specialty farmhouse cheesemaker of choice. Specialization. It's a desire to be unique, be so good at what they do that nobody else can replicate it. Goes back to resources. If you take a look at their purpose, what drives the company. Provide for our extended family internally and externally. There's always that rich family element. Why? Because in this firms you have different objectives. You have business objectives and you have family objectives. Let's think about this a little bit. So, what will be a common business objective of any organization?
Make profit.
Make profit. Of course. It's a key business objective. What else? Thank you very much. Is that the only business objective we can have? Make profit? What else? Have an impact in society, have an impact in your community, in your city, in your region. Right? Because you survive, you cannot do business on your own. Now let's think a little bit more. If any of you has experience in family business, or you know any family business, can you tell me what would be key family objectives in a business?
To orientate the business to the coming generation.
To pass the business down, right? Because if you create it, or your father created, your grandfather, your great-grandfather created this business, there is a very inherent desire to pass it down throughout the line. Yes?
I want to say keep the control, but it's very the same. And also in terms of value, maybe when you family business, it's like you can put this history inside marketing, so it makes it.
You have a great advantage, but at the same time, some risk. So imagine this, you want to keep the ownership, just like we saw in the previous slide, family controlled. Why? Why would there be a desire to have family control? Because you make decisions in the nucleus of your family. There is not much scrutiny as to what are you doing from external investors, which is good for a firm that has to make quick decisions and have to make decisions based on what you need to do next. It's a good advantage. But at the same time, they have to capitalize on aspects such as heritage, history. And sometimes, if you find a lot of family businesses around the world, they don't do it. They don't do it well enough. They have really capitalized on what makes them unique, authentic. This is their heritage. It's part of their identity. And that's why when you take a look at the products, actually you find something unique in them. Now, this is interesting. The values are clear. We know who we are. We're effective. We take ownership and we respect everybody. How often do you see statements like this in the corporate world? Very rarely. If you take a look at a lot of perspectives like this, it will be very elaborate, very corporate, very dry sometimes. When you have developed a business like this, you begin to see a very close, very personal way of developing values and vision and mission statements. And that tells you a lot about the kind of decisions that they have to make and how important it is when you make those investments and you take this into account. They have very good facilities to produce all this. I cannot tell you all the details. I have been there several times over the years. And again, it's a very well-run operation. Meal times, the varieties of cheeses, how often that meal has to travel. Why? Just because like wine, or like a Guinness, as the Irish would say, sometimes the travel doesn't go well with us. It affects them somehow. The closer you are to the cow, or to the animal producing the milk, the better it is when you're processing it. And again, they have to build their own capacity improvements. They have everything. Now take a look at that graph. What does it tell you? Imagine if you're going to invest in this company, right? What is that slide telling you? Yes. Same. Yeah. Exactly. It's always a good point to have a good sound business, how free they are to do different things. Because that will tell you that percent of missing in there tells you an idea that if you suggest something, you can suggest it based on what they have still lacking, right? That missing percentage. When you see a picture like that, that's good. Because again, it shows you that there is room to suggest something else. Thank you. Same here. It means that this business is growing and it's considering different options. That's the best thing you can find. Because then they will be open to new ideas. And sometimes the issue is, how do we propose these things? This is a key word nowadays. Sustainable methods and research. Very rarely you tend to find something like this in the farming sector. Why? Because most of the time we use the traditional and try and test the processes and methods that we are not willing to change. But these families are considering new ways, new things, new ideas, new methods, new research. And that's why they have asked you to, tell them what you think. Now, before we go into this, you can wait for the next question, right? How do you think what do you think the commercial strategy is? And some team as well has suggested something about a business strategy linked to corporate entrepreneurship. And let's just think about what do you think is the commercial strategy of permanence? How do you think we're wrong? What do you think makes them, what do you think makes their business more work? And if you were running it with that information, yes?
Maybe they stay with what they have and they don't try to explore new commercial opportunities like international or even maybe here in England they don't sell the product very well.
They specialize in what they do, they're good at what they do and they want to remain at that. Right? That's the strategy perhaps. That's a good point. What else? Thank you. You can assume things. It's good to assume. Yes.
I think they promote the handmade products and they want to focus on customer really care about the process and the family part of the. They know how to do it really, and they want to focus on that and not explain too much to every customer.
Yeah. You want to really suggest this is what we do, this is what we do best, and perhaps this may be a reason because they're handmade, authentic, and honest. They have one of the shortest supply chain in the industry. They produce packages in-house. They capitalize on authenticity. They capitalize on knowing what they do and do it well, package it well. And at the same time, if you take a look at this, for service level over the unprecedented challenges of the last 24 months, that's COVID highlight that they won't want to compromise ever on quality, and that resilience is part of what they do and how they do it. From the farmhouse, the stores, or directly to the consumers, a very short link distance between that connection of our production facility, our family, and the people that consume it. But there's more. Imagine a cheese maker company that has really capitalized on its branding. If you have never tasted, I encourage you to, when you go to the supermarket, you consider it when you look at this, when you find the label. Let's take a look at that. They call themselves a house of brands. And their approach to that perception is that they really capitalize on key things and give them an endorsement of the provenance of all the products as a quality standard. Because they have certain varieties of milk production, and they can produce different types of cheese, they can perhaps work on this. And why do they do it? Well, very simple. Unbridled cheese is protected. So only they can sell it, nobody else. Unbridled product success is driven by the consumer's demand for it, just like coffee, just like chocolate. But this is even more specialized because, again, they have unique ways of producing that particular taste that people like. And allows them to remain in control. Take a look at that. The ones that I have tried this one, and I've tried this one. Take a look, and they are registered, right? And when you take a closer look at how they have done it based on branding, you can tell there is a very strong interest, not only to consider new ways of doing it, but actually to present something very unique. Local farms, sourced from family and local farms, sourced from family and local farms, a connection with the community and how close the products are to the production facility is welcome. If you take a closer look, even further look at this, you begin to see how diverse those brands are. If you go to the supermarket, they have their own names on the bottles, and also they have production of brands that deal with different consumers. So from one firm that started out 50 years ago in Vegas, they go from Marks and Spencer's, they go different like a Tesco, they are thinking now who basically you will go for Aldi or for Lidl. And every single one of those brands highlights something about the family and the relationship. They have their own label. At the same time, if they make a decision to diversify or to specialize or do something else, they perhaps might have to compromise on how well their family name or their family branding name is going to be challenged. That's the kind of challenge this company face. And of course, I wish that Matt was here to tell a little bit more about his own development list, because he's extremely rich. And you can tell how well his firm has gone in terms of branding, diversifying. Of course, it was going to be a time for questions and answers, but he's not here. So, what we're going to do with this is that we are going to be working on an element based on that. Now, if we think about this kind of company, you have to present on this on Thursday. You have 3 options. Based on those options, and based on the kind of desire they have to really move forward, you have to be very clear as to which of the 3 options you will support. You'll have to back it up. You'll have to suggest why is the best option. You have to really bring together all the elements within your team to suggest this is what we believe, based on the information we have, is the way forward. In the challenge, you will see different information at the end, and you might use this as well for your workshop. So, that's the company you're going to be working with. And if you have a chance to try that cheese, that's going to be good. Try it, if you're going to be here, unfortunately, because it's a time business, you have to do that. All right? So, we're going to be talking about strategy and strategic thinking. Why? Because it's applicable to these kind of companies. First and foremost, let's try to think about developing a corporate entrepreneurial mindset. This all relates back to the strategic decisions. They are not made in isolation from customers, suppliers, and anybody else involved. And very importantly, textbook and research has time and time again suggested it does not move away from the personal values of the people that are behind the business. And we see it in the slide of values of this company. They're very strong in that, and that's perhaps why they have remained so good in business. That process suggests that there is something very unique when we're doing this. When you're thinking about this, about how to suggest some unique solution, you need to be thinking about the process, and you need to be thinking about the content of the strategy you're going to follow. The process, think about personal values. Think about how those values are permitted within the organization or outside. Think about how the DNA of that business actually is coming to life. When they are going to make decisions, they are very aware that those decisions are going to affect their whole organization and everybody, not only their family, but their extended family, as they mentioned. They have to implement those decisions very, very closely to the day-to-day operations, thinking at the same time, because they're a family business, in the long term. When we're making these kind of suggestions, right, we're going to be thinking about why is it important that we consider things like this. So imagine today, unfortunately, we have this incident in the business, and they perhaps had some plans what to do with the business, and they had a strategy to go about it. I'm not sure how many of you are familiar with Mintzberg strategy models. Raise your hand if you have ever seen them. No. 1. Okay, so will you mind if I go over them very briefly? Can you help me out? You can't? Oh, that's okay. All right. Henry Mintzberg is one of the most renowned strategy gurus. He's in Canada. He taught me a class on manufacturing strategy. I was one of his students. One of the things that he said was, look, the strategy that you have, when you're going to consider any solution of a business, has to have a fail-safe. It has to consider different things that are going to emerge in any day. Crisis, shocks, situations, people coming in, people coming out. And the advantage of that is that if you think that the strategy is fail-safe and is going to be set in stone, you're wrong. You might have an ideal strategy about what you need to do to reach a particular option, like diversification. You might be deliberately intending to get to that particular position. But the problem is, everyday interaction with customers, consumers, crises, and shocks are going to actually influence that to change that strategy over time. Therefore, when you are suggesting a solution, you need to be thinking about what are the changes that are happening in your environment. If you do not consider any of the changes that are happening in your environment, what is going to happen is that this is going to become really rigid. And because you don't want to deviate from it, or go away from that strategy you have set up, you're going to be challenged over time. Therefore, for some businesses, he said, the best thing is to, before you get to this point, you need to be thinking constantly in this section about the changes that are happening. Did I get it right so far? Thank you. So, let's think about that because at the same time, it might happen that it's different from company to company. And every decision, because every option that you take is going to think you have to take some resources away. And it's going to be a trade-off. That means if you go for one option, you cannot go for the other. Right? When we're thinking about this, about process, we also need to be thinking about content. And that means that we need to be very aware about what is happening outside and inside the organization. Why? Simply because you have seen this, right? This is your firm, and the firm you're analyzing, and at the same time you have other forces around it. You have consumers, you have buyers, you have the government, you have regulations coming in, you have Brexit coming in, you have everything that you can think of affecting the organization. And that means that the content of your suggestion needs to be taken this into account. Bottlers is not the only cheese producer in the region. That means they have competitors. They have other commercial strategies. But at the same time, they don't have the unique features that Bottlers have. If you're thinking about the content of your suggestions, you need to be thinking in terms of how strategic they can be, right? And what is strategy? You mentioned this at the beginning, perhaps in the lecture. What is strategy at the end of the day? We're going to develop a corporate entrepreneurial mindset. We've been thinking about and talking in the language of strategy as well. So what is strategy? Who said that? Yes? Action plan. An action plan? What else? Thank you.
A long-term framework to guide your company's growth.
Long-term framework is good. Yes.
Direction that would, like you said, guide actually the company to be able to sustain itself, through the changing environment.
And to make that kind of transformation, you need to make decisions. To make those decisions for a plan, you need resources. You need to be thinking already about the resources that the company has that they can use to make those long-term decisions to serve as a platform to help it to be sustainable over time. And at the end of the day, this is not just about short-term perspective. This is about companies that have been doing this for the last 4 generations, and they want to continue doing that for the next 4 or more. So when you're talking in terms of strategy, these kind of companies, you cannot go very simply with short-term solutions. You need to be thinking whether your option is to diversify, to specialize, and do something else. You need to be framed in the context of, this is a family business, and the values, how long they have been trading. Think about how long more they want to be trading. We are mindful that we're working with the same companies because we have to be very aware that, again, we have to make a capital expense of whatever option we're going to suggest. Very importantly, in here, is how important it is for them to be thinking the long term. Why? Well, sometimes those decisions that they're going to make, if they go for one of the options, are very difficult to reverse because they have to make changes to the structure, on the manufacturing capacity, and the people they're going to hire, etc., 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 especially if it is for a long-term proposal. At the end of the day, like any business, they have business objectives, they have to make money, they want to retain control, but they are in a battle against competitors. Therefore, whatever option you're going to suggest, please ensure that you tell them a little bit more how you will retain or improve that market share, that market capture. Back it up. That content as well suggests that we need to be thinking about some forces, regulations, technology, changing customer preferences. Some people might be, of course, lactose intolerance, some people might not like cheese, etc., etc. But of course, there are options coming up. You might be thinking about something. Let's take a look at changes, for example, in the coffee industry. There are so many changes that are happening at this time in the world. But actually, if you take any decision, you have to be thinking about not only knowledge, not only about family, not only about the way things are changing, but at the same time, what generation are we currently in? What are the expectations of these family members? What is the tradition in the sector? What are the inheritance laws? What is the business network all about? The more you take a look at this long-lived family businesses, the more complex it gets. Because you have to be thinking about business objectives and you have to be thinking about family objectives. You know this. Oh, so early on, you want to increase. We have been talking about resources now recently. And you can see how complex it can get because now we are trying to improve and increase the competencies of this company. Why? Well, some of you have used this model. It gives us a story, it gives us a snapshot, a picture of how that strategic thinking content is all about. You have used a SWOT analysis, right? And you can suggest what is favorable or unfavorable if you're going to make that decision. But which one is more important? Process or content? Is it the process to get you there? Is it the values? Is it the company perception, the mission and vision? Or is it the content? Or how you actually figure out what is going on and what needs to be made? What do you think? Is it more important that we concentrate on the process, or is it more important that we concentrate on the content? Anyway.
I think process is more important most of the times because content is more about execution plan, how the details by the process. Because about like you were mentioning, the business should respond to environment. All of the products actually over country, they also will influenced by the policy, the economic environment. So the process is very important.
Thank you for that. If you do not study the process right, if you don't understand very early on what the aim of the company is, what the values are, how that process will be driven, the content will be unfortunately very weak. So concentrate always first on trying to set up the process because it has to start from understanding the values, vision, and mission of the company itself. That will really guide you as to what kind of solution you want to suggest, how long term it has to be, and what is needed for. You have seen this model. Week 2 of lecture 2. Very simply, it's a very old model. It gives you a snapshot as well as to how a company that is growing is going to go to different crises, different issues, different shocks. And every step that you take on here means that you have to use different resources to move on. But at the same time, there is the risk that you lose control of what makes your company unique. That's the risk every time you move on this journey. Companies are growing, right? And we have to make suggestions as to what option is best. So for bottlers, right, they have an existing product, they have an existing market, but perhaps they will be thinking about, how do we develop a new market? One of those options might be related specifically to market development. What are the pros and cons of suggesting a strategy around this? We're developing a new market based on products. What about suggesting a new product? We're going to go for a particular option. Be very mindful that every of these options you have to support them as to why it relates to how the company has operated so far and what the family wants. It may seem very simple. Take that into account. And at the same time, there's an option there that suggests let's diversify. But that means as well it's increasing risk. Nothing wrong with risk. It's how you deliver it to bottlers. How are they best to go through this application and how well can they manage the risk? All the options that you have been given in that challenge relate to these very simple matters. Product development, they can modify it, right? Small, simple modifications perhaps. I'm sure you can modify a lot of cheese, but I'm not an expert. You do. I think we have a chemical engineer in the room, so he can tell us whether we can modify cheese. Where is it? Can we modify cheese somehow? Make it into a new product with developments, modifications? Can we do that? Yeah? Is it easy?
Probably not get exactly what you wanted, but we're going to have to research it around it.
Okay, so you could suggest something like that, right? Have something they haven't thought about. You can extend a successful brand that they have to similar but different products that might be purchased by the same customers. Well, that's interesting. That's a product extension strategy. Could they do that? I don't know. You're the experts. That's what we're looking forward to see on Thursday. But you can expand the products, develop a new variation that meets the needs of different market segments. Take a look at the website. Take a look at what they have done. And there is something always there that might be useful. Yes?
Yeah, the website is not accessible for the customers to use.
It's not?
No, it's not working.
Well, you know, you do something with the file. It's fortunate. Very sorry about that. We'll see.
Yeah, I don't know if it's only
No, don't worry. Let's try to take a closer look. Thank you for letting me know. Let's try to find out. Just check whether there's a connection or not.
I mean, yeah, no, it doesn't. Yeah, it says.
Yes. That means that something happened today. Thank you for that. Because unfortunately, you all see it this morning, extremely rich. Follow them on Facebook to see what they do. Follow them on Instagram to see what they do. You are developing a market. Think about this. Think about the competency of the product and service that they have. Think about whether that product or service is near the end of its life. But very importantly, think about the competition might be available into the markets you may suggest. They are not the only cheese producers. They may be the best ones. Now I'm going to play a video. It's going to be very cheesy video. By cheesy, I mean it's going to be like, all with music and different things, but there is a message behind it. Let's see if we can actually make it work. Sorry about that. Let's see.
Desire, believe when I
You are my fire, the one desire. Believe when I say, tell me what it is. Thought it was going to be cheesy. There you go. So, again, this is a very famous company, right? In the US, they have been extremely successful, and at the same time, the message that they're trying to convey here is very simple. What motivates these two companies to grow? Really, what motivates them to grow?
Rivalry?
Rivalry. What motivates rivalry? Motivation is emotional, right? This competition is emotional. And for families that have been developing business for a long period of time, the business development is emotional as well. At the same time they're doing this, they have to be thinking about what is it that they might lose as they grow. If you take a look at how that company grew, each company grew, it was based on different motivations. And at the end, something that they missed, they will have to go back to the basic elements, handling, authentic, going back. It was part of core values. If you miss that, core values of the company, you're suggesting an option. You're missing the core, real element. The one called the entrepreneurial mindset. You can follow that stories about Chipotle. Take a look as well. The link is in there in the website and also the slides. But other than that, see, I think perhaps we have a couple more. Just remember that, if you're going to suggest a particular pattern to follow, whether it's the increasing number of items or penetrate a market, you have to be thinking about what are the options in terms of how they're going to get there, because the description suggests, and the amount of connections, resources that you're going to be using. Differentiation strategy exists in every industry. They are trying to do something like that, but perhaps it might be not the best option. So you decide. Just remember this. When you're trying to consider different options, they will be in tension. You're trying to specialize, you're trying to concentrate, you go away against aspects such as diversifying. If they're going to make decisions from the top down, bottom up, if they're going to be taking risk, or perhaps keep a very incremental, slow decision-based process to actually devise the strategies for any particular option. At the same time, as you're running the process, let's not forget that the implementation stage, as you're suggesting this, might be in tension with the content. Other than that, don't forget this particular aspect. Porters, you're tired of looking at porters. So it's always good just to go back to them with your suggested ideas. So I'm going to leave it in here. Tomorrow we're going to have our last lecture based on academic presentations. And then on Thursday, we're going to have a visit of another speaker and the final workshop for this week. So other than that, see you tomorrow. Thank you very much, everybody.